Could a strange substance found by a southwest Arkansas man be part of a government test? Well, that's the question at the heart of a phenomenon called chemtrails, now getting widespread attention. Well, tonight, KSLA News 12 investigation reporter Jeff Farrell shows us the results of testing we had done about what's in our skies.
It seemed like some mornings it was just crisscrossing the whole sky. It was just like a giant checkerboard.
Bill Nichols snapped several photos of the strange clouds from his home in Stamps, Arkansas. They begin as normal contrails from a jet engine, but do not fade away like a normal contrail. Soon after, he saw particles in the air.
You know, because we'd see it drop to the ground in a haze.
Nichols then noticed the material collecting on the ground.
This is water and stuff that I collected in bowls. I had it set out in my backyard on my dad's pickup truck.
KSLA News 12 had the sample tested at a lab. The results? A high level of barium, 6.8 parts per million, more than 3 times the toxic level set by the EPA.
Armed with these lab results about the high levels of barium found in our sample, we decided to contact the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality. They told us that yes, these levels are very unusual, but at the same time they added the caveat that proving the source is a whole nother matter.
Barium is a hallmark of other chemtrail testing, which even attracted attention from a Los Angeles TV station. There's already no shortage of unclassified weather modification programs by the government. But those who fear chemtrails could be secret biological or chemical testing on the public point to the 1977 Senate hearings in particular, which confirmed 239 populated areas had been contaminated with biological agents between 1949 and 1969. Later, the 1994 Rockefeller Report concluded hundreds of thousands of military personnel were also subjected to secret biological experiments over the last 60 years. But could secret testing be underway yet again?
I'd rather it be something inert and benign, something that's, not causing any damage, but I'd like to know what it is.
KSLA News 12 discovered chemtrails are even mentioned by name in the initial draft of House Bill 2977 back in 2001 under the Space Preservation Act. But the military denies any such program exists. Jeff Farrell, KSLA News 12 reporting.
And, it turns out until 9 years ago, the government had the right under U.S. law to conduct secret testing on the American public under specific conditions. Only a public outcry repealed part of that law, with some exceptions.
Now, Jeff's report mentioned high levels of barium linked to those alleged chemtrails. We wanted to find out exactly what effects barium has on the body. We spoke with Mark Ryan, the director of the Poison Control Center. Ryan tells KSLA News 12 that short-term exposure can lead to anything from stomach to chest pains. Long-term exposure causes blood pressure problems. Ryan addressed concerns by chemtrail researchers that barium could be meant to wear down a person's immune system.
Anything that causes ill effects in the body long-term chronically is going to affect your ability because it's constantly working on the body. So from that aspect, yeah, that's a potential.
Ryan says he's conducted research on his own about secret government testing on the public, but he's still a bit skeptical about the alleged chemtrails, at least at the moment, because the Poison Control Center has seen no calls about exposure to barium.
Dreamer first. Tell me about Dreamer.
Oh, well, when I saw the State of the Black Union, Dick Gregory really moved me and a lot of my friends. I show it to everybody who comes over the house, especially white folks, because they need to hear that, so that they know more about all of us. Mm-hmm. Because what he said affects all of us. He said something that really hit home about this phenomena of chemtrails. And, when I was a kid, I used to see these trails in the sky all the time. And say, oh, that's cool. A jet just went over. And then you started to see a whole bunch of them. And next thing you know, everybody in your neighborhood was fighting and arguing, and you didn't know why. Okay, and you really didn't know why. I mean, everybody was fighting. So he started riffing about the chemtrails, and he started to say things that hit home so hard. And I would recommend that everybody try to get what he said online or wherever.
Plutonium, if it is ingested by a human body, almost certainly leads to the development of cancer.
Ladies and gentlemen, what I've just shown you is simply a brief synopsis of the horrific horror show that is currently gripping the hearts of every resident that lives within Japan at this time. And now with them dumping tens of thousands of tons of radioactive matter, highly radioactive matter, into the Pacific Ocean, this situation is no longer one that is solely isolated to Japan alone. This situation is getting ready to impact the lives of tens of millions of individuals all throughout the world. People are getting ready to come down with unexplainable, incurable health conditions, and it will be unbeknownst to themselves how this whole thing has come upon them. One day, their health was good. 3 days later, they're laid up in the hospital suffering from some deadly illness, and they will be oblivious as to how their health went south. And the reason why they'll be oblivious is because currently, these individuals have been duped into listening to the peace and safety insidious rhetoric of the politicians and the scientists that are coming on the television set day in and day out, feeding us the same thing. There's nothing to worry about. This won't affect the environment. This won't affect your health. How can we listen to such lies and deception, such nonsense as this? Ladies and gentlemen, life can change in a moment's notice. Just look at what is happening in Japan at this time. This is a first world country we're talking about. One day, they're on the top of the pile. The very next day, they are scrambling feverishly, seeking for a means to stabilize their society, all without warning. But does this mean that the whole situation that is now underway in Japan was not planned? Is it possible that the tsunami that hit Japan, causing catastrophic damage to the Fukushima nuclear plant, was something that was engineered and brought about by a device called HAARP? If you're not familiar with what HAARP is,
HAARP, High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program.
It is a field of antennas on the ground in southeastern Alaska, so linked together as to work as one giant antenna. It's 360 antennas. Each can generate 10,000 watts, 3.6 million watts collectively. The largest legal AM radio station in the U.S. is only 50,000 watts. But they're not broadcasting out. They're broadcasting up.
When HAARP is fired up, all those antennas shoot powerful radio waves into the ionosphere, the uppermost part of the atmosphere. They literally heat it. They create irregularities that allow the ionosphere to bounce powerful radio signals back to Earth.
And when that high-powered beam returns back down to Earth, it not only has the ability to change the weather, and if you thought you didn't hear me right, you heard me right. HAARP has the ability to control the weather. But that high-powered beam that is shot up into the ionosphere by this mechanism also has the power to cause earthquakes. And earthquakes, we know, are the cause behind tsunamis. Now, when this beam is fired off from HAARP, it causes these erratic, radical patterns in the clouds of the sky, like the following images that I'm showing on the screen at this time. Now, I want you to compare those images that I just showed to you with the following video footage, because what I'm about to show you is actual video of Japan's sky just prior to the tsunami that hit on March the 11th, or should I say on 3/11. Now, after observing that video footage, it's pretty clear to see that the abnormal cloud patterns that were present in the skies above Japan just prior to the tsunami that hit on March the 11th are exactly the same as the peculiar cloud patterns that are produced by the powerful antennas of HAARP. But if that's true, could it also possibly be true that the government of the United States of America is responsible for creating the massive cataclysmic tsunami that hit the shores of Japan, bringing absolute destruction to everything in its path and turning their reality into a living nightmare? Could something like that be possible? How could the government of the United States of America be responsible for perpetrating such a heinous criminal act as this against Japan? I mean, before we start accusing people, there has to be seen a very clear-cut motive as to why this type of evasive action would be carried out. Some extremely clear-cut motives. Do you think it's possible that the government of the United States of America is familiar with the fact that Iran's biggest export is oil? Oil makes up 96% of Iran's exports. And out of that 96% of Iranian oil that is exported, Japan is responsible for purchasing 12% of that Iranian oil at a whopping $12.7 billion. And those are the old statistics from the year 2007, making Japan one of the largest, if not the largest, importer of Iranian oil. And you know, it takes billions of dollars to develop a feasible nuclear program, a feasible Iranian nuclear program, which the government of the United States of America is dead serious about bringing to an abrupt stop. Do you think our government is familiar with this information that I have just shared with you? Or how about this information? In the February 25th, 2010 publication of the Tehran Times, it is stated that Iran's nuclear program will follow the Japanese model, according to Iranian Representative Ali Larijani. Then, in another notable publication, Japan Today, in June 2010, the Iranian Vice President Ali Akbar Salih is stated as saying that Iran expects Japan to fulfill its promise of helping it to build nuclear power plants. He also stated that Tokyo was so keen for nuclear cooperation with Iran, especially in the construction of new power plants, that it asked Iran not to act hastily in signing contracts with other countries. Now, if you take all of that information collectively, we have more than a substantial reason as to why the United States of America would want to perpetrate such a heinous criminal act against Japan. But that's just me pulling a wild card out of my deck. It might not mean anything whatsoever. But speaking of cards, are you familiar with the Illuminati card game? The same card game that years before it transpired was able to mysteriously predict that the Twin Towers as well as the Pentagon would be stricken by terrorist actions. Uncanny, don't you think? Well, in that same card game, there's an interesting card called Combined Disasters. And on this card called Combined Disasters, we see people dressed in what seems to be traditional Japanese garb. And then in the background, we see a clock tower that bears an uncanny resemblance to the Waco clock tower located in Giza of Tokyo. And if that's just not uncanny enough for you, look at the hands on the clock. The little hand is just about on the number 3. And the big hand is smack dab on the number 11. 311.